In this lesson, we'll be learning about the Annelida classes. Our first is class Polyketa. Now, Polyketa is Greek, and the CH makes a K sound, so you pronounce this Polyketa. Poly is Greek for many, and Keta is Greek for hair or bristles. So this is named for the many bristles you can see sometimes on polychaetes. Now, they're not bristles, they're not hair like we have hair on the top of our head, but they do look like bristles, but they're gills, and we'll look at a picture of them on the next slide. So the common name for organisms in class Polyketa are marine annelids. You may think that's not very common, but that's their name. They're marine annelids. And some characteristics of polychaetes are they have parapodia, gills, and sensory organs. Those are things that the other annelids do not have, in particular the parapodia and the gills. So here is a polychaete. You can see in this one in particular, this is why they're named polychaetes. The gills on the side look like little hairs or little bristles, and there's a lot of them. So that's why it's named Polyketa. We can see the segmentation, which means it's an annelid. They do have eyes and sensory tentacles as well, which also makes it a polychaete. Here's another one. We learned about this one on the video from last lesson. This is called a scale worm, and it lives on the underside of a sea star. It's not a parasite. It doesn't harm the sea star. It's more of a commensalistic relationship where the worm benefits from living under the sea star and eating the food the sea star eats, but the sea star really doesn't care that it's there. And then here's another marine annelid, another polychaete. The bristles on the side, the segmentation means it's an annelid, and then there's those sensory tentacles. So this is a polychaete. Our next class is class Hierodinea. Hierodinea is Latin for leech, so the common name for hierodinians is leeches. They are external parasites, meaning they feed off of a host but live outside the body. So we talked about tapeworms in Platyhelminthes, and we talked about like the ascarid worm, the trichinella worm in phylum Nematoda. Those are internal parasites. They live inside of the host body. But a leech lives external of the host. They have powerful suckers at both ends of their bodies that allow them to cling on to their host. And they are sometimes used even today in medicine to reduce swelling after surgery. You think back in the medieval days, they would bleed people a lot. They would put leashes on them in order to get rid of, quote, blood diseases. We don't do that now, but we do use them to reduce swelling after surgery sometimes. So here's a leech. The head end has a powerful sucker, but the tail end does as well to help it hold on. Here's a leech on a rock bottom. So they are external parasites. They'll feed off of a host, whether it be a human, some other type of mammal, and then they leave. So there is a leech that has had its blood mill, and you can see it's very bloated. Our last class in phylum Annelida is class Oligochaeta. This is Greek again. Oligo means few or small, and chaeta means bristles. So the Greek means few bristles or small bristles. And this is appropriately named because they don't have those gills or those bristle-like looking organs that polychaetes do, but they are still annelids. The common name is earthworms. You can just put earthworms. There are relatives that aren't exactly earthworms, but we won't even talk about those. So earthworms is the common name for class Oligochaeta. They are annelids that live in soil or freshwater. They spend most of their lives underground, and they eat soil and detritus, which is decaying stuff. That means they're detritivores. They eat decaying matter. And they aerate the soil, helping plants. In the movie from last lesson, it talked about how at the very end how annelids have made our world. They make it green, they make it blossom, and that's true because what the earthworms do is they break down the decaying matter, they defecate it out, and then plants have those nutrients available to live and grow and thrive. So oligochaetes really do make our world green through plants and grow because of the underground work that these oligochaetes, these earthworms, are doing. So there's an earthworm in hand. You can see most earthworms aren't very big. Some can grow to be very long, but most, especially the ones that you've seen, are fairly small. And there it is again. We can see the segmentation, meaning it's an annelid, and you can even see the clitellum here, which is the reproductive organ of earthworms. So those are our three classes of annelids.